EduAI Podcast. This podcast provides technical and contextual information regarding episode 2 of the EduAI podcast series, titled Tailoring AI Integration to Educational Needs. The episode is part of the dissemination activities of the EduAI project and aims to translate the project's research findings into an accessible yet academically grounded discussion format.
Welcome to the EduAI Podcast. In episode 2, we focus on tailoring AI integration to educational needs. I'm Efecan Tanrısever. Today we focus on one clear question. How can AI be used in education in a way that truly helps both educators and students? In this episode, we talk about practical ways to use in AI in different courses, disciplines, and learning environments. The discussion is based on findings of EduAI project. Today, I'm joined by three valued guests. Dr. Mehmet Altuğşahin from Istanbul University. He is a member of the EduAI lead team and directly worked on the project research. Dr. Bahattin Avcı from Top University of Economics and Technology. He focuses on AI tools, technical systems, and digital infrastructure in higher education. Professor Dr. Şükür Terim Osmani from the University of Tetova, where works focuses on teaching methods, teaching process, and student engagement. Okay, let me start with you, Dr. Şahin. Can you walk us through the methodology used to understand what educators actually need when it comes to AI integration?
Of course, Efe Hocam. First of all, hello everyone. I would like to give you a brief introduction about how the research methodology came to life. We took 4 steps while designing it, and first step was about the literature review. So we have conducted a comprehensive literature review throughout the process, which will of course feed the next steps of the research methodology, and then we moved on with the qualitative interview and brought out the questions that were to be actually asked to the experts that level. We wanted to go on with in-depth reviews to get more information, because as we are all new to the AI, the usage of AI as social scientists, we think that there is always a hidden information in some in each of us, because it's more related to the experience at the moment. So we had a pilot study first, but then moved on with the conducting the research. The 26 experts, all of those experts were integrating their AI in different formats. They had previous experiences. Some were lecturers, some were assistant professors, associate professors, full-time professors in their institutions. And then we moved on with the thematic analysis, and which actually fed the third step, which is quantitative analysis. This, the data, of course, first, then the analysis method was implemented. We proposed a structural model throughout it, and went on with a pilot study. Within it, we had technology acceptance model, resistance to change, AI TPAC, technological pedagogical knowledge, a perceived trust, anthropomorphism, perceived autonomy within it. And once we were done with collecting all of the data, we moved on to the fourth step, which was about synthesizing the results. And we synthesized the results. We were able to get a better understanding of how AI can be integrated, what are the challenges, and what are the advantages and sometimes the disadvantages of it. And we were able to, I think, create a good background for the framework.
So when you analyzed the data, what were the main gaps or the needs that emerged among educators?
We were able to see, actually, maybe we can get all of these data into 6 topics. Once we collect them, of course, there are lots of challenges nowadays. As I said, as we are all new and learn as you go, it's like a method nowadays. So we are all experiencing it individually. I think we all have each other's individual challenges too. So of course the analyzers, we were able to see that there were 6, like AI knowledge and literacy gaps, ethical, accountability and equity issues, infrastructure and cost related challenges, instructional limitations and technical challenges, pedagogical disciplinary challenges, and social interactions. If we were to group them, of course, as I said, in AI knowledge and literacy gap, we were able to see that there's a lack of AI literacy among instructors because, as I said, we have to learn it on our own. So there isn't any methods, framework, or established any other method that was integrated. So we have seen that also there's a huge rapid development within AI. So while we're using something today, it's so quick, so it changes for tomorrow. So about the infrastructural and cost related challenges, as you know, these things are not for free. So if you're to go with the premium cases, the cost of installation, the training, and of course not from just the budgetary perspective, but also from the time consuming perspective. Also, sometimes we were to run to insufficient technological infrastructure too. So inclusion is a huge thing. So for everyone to be included, the technology infrastructure is certainly needed. Pedagogical and disciplinary challenges out of it, we were able to see that it was a bit of restricted applicability. So what we mean by that, not all the fields are actually benefiting from equally from AI. Each science field requires their own perspectives. So, for instance, as I'm in tourism management department, it's also an applied area, we can say. So, in our case, we need more personalized feedback. So that's another thing that is lacking. Also, we saw that limited understanding of the student thinking with lack of standard guidelines in AI usage in education and risk of over reliance on AI. So once you get too much attached to the AI usage, we see that it's not becoming just a tool that we use, but it's becoming more like as a purpose. So once we over rely on it, I think the productivity sometimes deteriorates. So it's a huge thing. And from the ethical part, ethical issues, plagiarism, as we give our students, I think homeworks and etc. I think we are all a bit tend to be more cautious about collecting the homework. So ethical issues and plagiarism arise, and accountability. So who's writing which generated content? So is it generated AI or is it the person that is chatting with? Or also privacy, data security, accessible accuracy, and copyright issues were some of the things we've seen. And we also saw the technical errors and limitations within it, and restricted contextual and understanding, and limited ability to process nuanced responses. And another perspective, the last one, the social interactions. I think within education, it plays a huge role, the social interaction. What we saw was actually most of the educators were critique about, will it affect the social interactions they have with their students? They're believing that it will limit and minimize the social interaction, which has a huge impact on the learning outcomes throughout the education, and also the human role in teaching. They are also a bit concerned about that too. Will the role of us be the same? So these were the challenges that we were able to address.
Thank you for your answers, Dr. Shine. Let me turn to Professor Lumausmani. From a pedagogical perspective, can you explain how the AI enchant teaching cycle works within the framework?
Thank you for your question. I believe that AI is rapidly entering into universities across the Europe. Anyway, responsible AI adoption means using AI in ways that, how to say, enhance learning without undermining trust or fairness or human judgment. It is not about whether universities should use AI. I believe that the debate is already over. The real question here is how they should use it. Also, responsible adoption requires clear ethical boundaries, transparency, and how transparency on the aspect of how the data is used, and a strong focus on empowering both sides, teachers as well as students, and not replacing them. Anyway, I would like to emphasize that I believe that AI will not replace teachers, but there is always but. Teachers that do not use AI will be replaced by the one who does. So everyone, I think, should adhere to the latest technology changes and adopt them as best as they can on the educational system.
So let me turn to Dr. Shine again. How does AI support educators specifically in the pre-class phase of the teaching cycle?
If you're to divide the teaching cycle,
Mm,
I think the pre-class is more concerned about how we develop the class and how
mm,
we are actually preparing ourselves. So there are learning outcomes, there are objectives of the class, and what we want to teach the students. So within it, there are four things, I think, like generating course plans and contents. So as I said, it's an assistance. It's not going to replicate, or we shouldn't be actually changing our methods, but we should be utilizing them in these. So not generating, but maybe enhancing the generating the course plans throughout this and content. I think it will be really good thing to do to have a better enhanced class.
mm,
Also, having a personalized learning objectives and identifying them. These are the things that we think it will make a huge impact on. Instructional materials, how we develop them. Sometimes we are limited with what we have at that moment, but having another perspective and asking AI tools how we can enhance the materials that we have, they can actually suggest some new methods. So we
mm.
have also seen that, and also automating the administrative preparations, it helps hugely. So overall, it's acts as an assistance tool throughout the preface of the class.
Thank you. Mm, Let me turn to Professor Lima Osmani, following up on this in the during in-class phase. How does AI contribute to student engagement during the in-class phase?
I believe if we see on the aspect, if AI weakness critical thinking among students, it will only happen if we teach students to consume instead of question. So the solution is AI literacy and not bans. My opinion is that the students need to understand how AI works, how AI integrated system works, where their limitations are, how bias and hallucinations occur on that system. When students are taught to critically evaluate AI outputs as well as compare them with other sources and reflect on their use, AI actually it just strengthens the agency. It shifts students from passive reception of information to active decision makers who know when and how to use these tools appropriately. And I often say to my students, you may use every AI tools available, but you need to have in consideration one thing. The moment that the teacher will ask you orally to present something or related to a project or a similar, unfortunately, AI cannot do presentations. Therefore, you must use their data and in a way systematically how to say represent them to yourself and then know how to present the same to the other colleagues and students as well.
So we have talked about pre-class, in-class, and the time is talking about the post-class. Building on that, what role does the post-class phase
Yes.
play in strengthening the feedback loop?
So, regarding the post-class phase, I believe that in this part also is very important to include the universities and the policies in order to follow practice. And we must have into consideration the fact that institutions that waited for perfect regulations in this phase, they fell behind. Those the ones that piloted responsibly, they learned faster. So anyway, a human-centered system must not be non-negotiable. AI works best when it supports dialogue, creativity, and feedback. I believe that this challenge is turning on away these principles on everyday teaching practice.
Great, thank you for your answers. Let me turn to Dr. Elavji. What types of AI tools does the framework recommend to support the teaching cycle?
Yes, this part is really advancing in a great speed right now. We are seeing different kinds of AI tools each day created for education. So I think this is going to be a rapidly changing era, but just to touch base on some of the parts, what we need is we can think about the conversational chatbots that you use every day. So these include models like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Cloud, etc. These are used daily, and these can be used daily in each of the respective phases of the education, higher education. This includes the content generation, the evaluation, and all these different parts of the education can have effects on these. And we're also seeing the rise of adaptive learning platforms, especially for the online course platforms that are used widely. We see a personalized curriculum and personalized learning pathways for each student. So this is going to be the next phase of the higher education, where we have personalization at every scale, whether we like it or not. So this is like going from a static curriculum for every student. We're going to see different personalized pathways for each student. And we're also seeing a lot of increase in the automated grading systems, because as you know, grading and evaluation is a very integral part of education. So we're seeing different platforms and different softwares where they use AI to help with the grading and evaluation. And as the evaluations are really massed up and we have a lot of data about this, we can do predictive analytics where we can see at-risk students if they're going to fail or not, and we can have early warning systems on the education that we're providing. And also, when we're talking about the content generation, it's not just about text that we're seeing. We're also seeing different AI tools so that transforms the syllabus, the course content, the modules into visual learning models. And these are going to be huge beneficiary of the higher education. And just to sum up, we will see these AI tools integrated with the learning management systems. And we're seeing this right now currently with the integration of the AI tools into Moodles and other learning management systems. So at the end of the day, we will have an AI tool that addresses each of the things that we were talking. It's the pre-class, the post-class, and all these different layers of the education will be adopted with a different tool.
Just to follow up, are there specific AI tools recommended for assessment or evaluation?
There are tools like GradeScope where you can upload the evaluated forms, whether it's the digital forms like digital text results or even scanned paperback handwritten evaluation forms or exams or anything like that. These can be uploaded, and these tools are doing like clustering similar answers and providing feedback to the professor itself so that they can significantly reduce the grading fatigue. So when you have a lot of students, you have to grade a lot of papers, and each paper becomes a lot of problem, and you have a grading fatigue. So these help in a lot of ways for this. And you're seeing a rise, of course, in the plagiarism detection tools, especially with AI generated content detection tools as well. But these needs to be handled with carefully, because we don't really have a reliable system that detects AI generation. So these needs to be handled with caution. Anyhow, these auto grading systems will streamline any evaluation system and provide scalability for large cohorts of students. So imagine a 500 or 600 student taking a course. It would have been an impossible job to grade these students and provide feedback for these students. But right now, with AI tools, we can provide such feedback nearly instantaneously. So this is the real power of AI. But we should always, as the other panelists have already talked about, do not forget the gold standard of oversight, of human oversight. So the professor, the teacher is not just providing the exams and getting the results from the AI, but really using the AI tools as something like first pass grader, and then after that, looking into the real results and finalizing the grades with his audits. This is the main thing that we need to talk about, even if we use these different tools.
And from that point, what are the main technical and infrastructural challenges in implementing these systems?
Yes, this is the important part, I think. So when we're talking about AI systems and large language models, as we talk about them technically, these have a lot of computation needs. So we need GPUs, what we call graphical processor units, and not every institution has these. So you can either subscribe to an online system or you can use local LLMs, and each has different risks and opportunities. So these are the main problems that we're going to see when we're going to first deploy these. There's also the general connectivity problem, especially for underdeveloped or developing nations where we have internet connectivity problems. And even if we have subscribed to a model, there's a lot of initial costs that we're facing for each institution. So it's like assume institution with 1,000 or 2,000 students, and there's going to be a huge costs in terms of how we're going to do that. So this will create problems when we're having accessibility for when we're trying to provide AI for everybody. So this is the main things that we need to do. There's also a lot of problems in terms of skills, human resources. Not everybody is really in, we have the technical expertise for this. People can have technical expertise from IT side of networking or the other side, but AI needs its own technical expertise. So these will all create problems for institutions that needs to be addressed before giving the student this access. And there's also the other panels were talking about, there's this hallucinations problems of the AI system. So when we're deciding on which model to use, there's different aspects that we need to take into account before really making out the decision. So these all need specialization, technical expertise, and inputs from the teachers, and each will become a bottleneck if we don't address them correctly.
So, Professor Osmani, I would like to hear your thoughts on this. The framework refers to the TPAC model. So, why is this model important for AI integration in education?
Okay. The TPAC model, I believe it is an important for the whole process of AI integration into education, since it makes clear that AI is not just a technological tool, but it is also a force that reshapes the whole process of teaching and learning. Effective and responsible. This kind of model combines technological knowledge as well. It means understanding how AI system works and where are their limits. Also, it is important to emphasize that this kind of model implies a pedagogical knowledge, so knowing how students learn and how assessments and instructions should be designed, as well as content knowledge. It means deep understanding of the subject that is being taught. So without this kind of integration, AI risks of being misunderstood in a way, reinforcing biases, undermining learning objectives, or simply replacing critical thinking instead of supporting it. The TPAC model ensures that AI is embedded purposefully into teaching practices, as well as an important fact here is that it should keep human judgment as a central point and aligns technology with use of educational goals rather than just convenience or novelty.
Okay, thank you for your answers. Let me turn to Dr. Shahin again. Could you highlight the key ethical guidelines for instructors outlined in the framework?
Yes, sure, of course. Within the framework, we actually proposed guidelines, AI integration guidelines for both the higher education institution, also for the instructors too. Within it, of course, the ethical and responsible use of AI tools is also one of the topics that has been addressed. For higher education institutions, let me put some of those into examples. For instance, at the level of collaboration is needed. For instance, in Turkey nowadays, there's an ethical guideline that has been published by Higher Education Council. All of the universities are expected to follow these ethical guidelines. So the collaboration between the university level, higher construct level should be accomplished, and also the bias mitigation, student privacy, AI transparency are some of the things that we addressed within the guideline. As also the professor outlines, I think the subscription plays sometimes in our life, in our daily lives, a role being integrated into AI systems, but also it comes with its challenges too. So data privacy is a huge challenge from ethical perspective too, because if you're to upload a student's paper or etc., it means actually you're sharing in a personalized information, and I think we should be cautious about that. So for instructors, we can say we can use these. It has to be a transparent, a responsible AI tool that we're using. We should be addressing the bias that we see within these systems, and also we have to hold the academic integrity, because we are, as I said throughout the podcast that we have right now, one of the things comes to mind is who's responsible for writing this, who's accountable, who are we to so academic authorship is one of the things that comes to mind. So there are lots of ways to address these, and I think we have to act cautious throughout the process.
So on that point, a quick follow-up for Dr. Edavci. How does the framework address the issues of equity and access when it comes to AI tools?
Yes, this is a very important point. So, AI comes with opportunities, but with also risks. So we need to, when we're trying to seize the day with the opportunities, we have to also take into account these problems. And accessibility and equitable access, all these are very important. And first of all, we need to make sure that students with disabilities are incorporated into the system is much better. We need to move from accommodating them to like a native inclusion of these people so that they don't fall behind when these AI tools are designed for normal usage. So these are very important issues that we need to keep in mind when we're giving access to the students. For example, simplified user interfaces or specifically designed user experiences for such people is very important so that they don't fall behind with these tools. And also, as we were talking about, each problems that we were talking about, like cost or infrastructure problems, create digital divides, digital islands that are not able to address and access these tools. So maybe we need light models or so that we can have AI tools for everybody. For offline models, like Professor Alto was talking about, we don't need to upload any sensitive information to cloud providers, but instead use local LLMs, local AI. So this provides gives us an opportunity. We higher education councils and universities need to support open source alternatives for AI systems so that we are able to see what data we're sending and how is that used in the respective parts of that. These are all important. As a general comment, I think we need to do something like an accessibility audit before giving access to these AI tools, vetting all of the third-party AI tools before giving a campus-wide deployment. So verifying their data compliance, the usability, the equitability, taking all these into account and making equity impact assessments. So how does this assess the different students and how can we make sure that every student has an access to a model that they can use. It doesn't create problems for different user groups. So when we're and these all need, I think, training on behalf of both the policymakers and for faculty. So when we're talking about AI literacy, we need to talk about how AI can create problems for accessibility and equitability.
One more thing before closing. Dr. Edavci, looking ahead, what transformations does the framework foresee for AI in higher education?
I think we're in a very adventurous zone right now with AI, as it's rapidly building up new capabilities. So we are going to see a huge change in the educational, both in higher education and other parts of the education systems. So we are going to see the evolution of degrees from static curriculums to maybe different pathways for different students, and we're going to see an immersive learning experience, right? Where a student has a tutor nearly every day, every second with him, and he can talk with it, use it for self-study. So these will have transformative effects on the continuous AI-driven upskilling and all these different parts of the education. We're also going to see more personalized education where we see a different trajectory of learning for each student, depending on their background, depending on their capabilities, and all that different factors that come into play when we're doing higher education. So we have to think AI as some kind of infrastructure for education, not some as a tool, but as a like electricity or like classrooms. This is a fundamental, foundational infrastructure that everybody will be using for different parts of the education. And when we're doing that, as we were all talking about this, we need to address the risks that are evaluated while trying to really get that opportunities, get the efficiency, get the personalized education that we need for both. This can help for both professors and the students.
Thank you for your answers. Any final thoughts before we close?
Thank you very much for all the panelists. It was a very grateful and great discussion that we all learned.
As we're trying to empower the educators, as the professor said, it's becoming an infrastructure, and we are fully aware of it. It's not an enemy, actually, so we have to learn how to use it. As an outcome of the project, we would like all of the listeners, and we would like to invite them to visit our website and subscribe to our newsletter, so we can share the news and the outcomes of our project, which one of them is going to be about a learning module that we will develop and will help the educators in the future to use this, to utilize these tools.
So thank you to our guests and to our listeners. This was the second episode of the EduAI project. See you in the next episodes.
Guest participants included Dr. Mehmet Altugsain, Istanbul University, member of the EduAI Lead Project team and directly involved in the project's research activities. Dr. Bahayeddin Iravk, TOB University of Economics and Technology, contributing expertise on AI tools, technical systems, and digital infrastructure in higher education. Professor Dr. Shkurt Luma Osmani, University of Tetova, providing a pedagogical perspective with a focus on teaching processes and student engagement. Moderated by F.A. Kantanaseva. Voiceover generated by artificial intelligence. Partnership: Istanbul University, University of Aveiro, AidLearn, the European Teachers Academy, USTAD, University of Tetova, Froma Partner, Metropolitan College, EVBB, co-funded by the European Union.